Hey everyone, welcome to the Hangar Garage. Today, we're talking about the Harbor Freight Titanium Unlimited 200. So a little backstory about this. This is going to be a review slash kind of new series for me. This is the first video I'm making in this series, and this is going to be about basically what I do in the shop. It's kind of a guys channel, and females. If you're handy female, I'd love to see you join, see what you guys are working on. I've never welded before, so I've done enough research and I know what I'm looking for to review one of these. But at the end, what we're going to do is we're going to actually lay down some beads and see what we can make with it. I got a few projects lined up that are sitting here. Some I'll show you in just a bit. But right now, let's focus on this. So the backstory with this was I was going to buy a welder many years ago, right? I'm sure everyone that's watching this video was at some point in that same boat. They're expensive. They're a lot that goes with it. So of course everyone looks at the buzz boxes from Harbor Freight, the cheap ones, the $100 ones. And I did too, and I was pretty convinced I was going to get the 140 or the 170, depending on what I was going to do. I wasn't sure if I was going to do 220 volt or just 110. And started talking to a guy that works in a auto body shop, and he said, absolutely 220. So I said, okay, well, the machines now are making multi-machines, which are 110 or 240 volt. So that's what this machine is, and there are a couple on the market. And you know, 110 would be good. We have a cabin up north, so if I wanted to take it to the cabin, I don't have a 240 plug at the cabin. I really don't want to wire one at the cabin. There's no need for it. But it'd be nice if I just needed to do a small project up there just to have a 110 machine. All you gotta do is plug in the 110 to a normal standard outlet, flip the switch on the back of the welder, and we're off running. So with that being said, about the time I was looking at the 170 Harbor Freight, they stopped selling it. And I don't know when they stopped selling it. There was a gap that I wasn't looking at them, but they came out with the Titanium series, and I started looking more into it, and a lot of guys said that they loved them. I did my review just as probably you're doing your review, watching one of these videos, and man, some of the things that guys were doing with them were incredible. The duty cycles were not anywhere near what was stated in the box, which I don't say that you should go over them, but guys were repeatedly going over them without any issue. So without further ado, let's get into this thing. So first of all, packaging. I have many of you that have shopped at Harbor Freight know that the packaging can kind of be chintzy, and I say kind of, it usually is pretty chintzy, but this is solid. This is what I would imagine to get from a big box store. Really solid box, looks like it's packed really well. Nothing seems to be damaged, which is another problem that you commonly run into at Harbor Freight. There always seems to be some kind of ding or smash. It's like they just load the trucks as fast as they can. So, alright, I'm going to put this down on the ground, make this a little easier. Be right back. Alright, let's get into this. So, first of all, instructions. Probably a good thing to read if you've never welded, such as myself. Let's see, at the top, you've got solid wire. That's for MIG welding with gas. And then you've got a spool of flux core wire. That's obviously if you're not using gas. Some consumables. Looks like a roller, a MIG tip, and some tips for the MIG gun. You've got a knob for the regulator. The regulator. And nicely labeled, actually. I don't know if you can see that, but TIG gun. And welding cable, grounding clamp, and the gas hose. All packaged in another nice box that I'm actually really shocked at this point. Really impressed, actually. And then the welder. Really nicely packaged in there, covered with a bag, which don't tend to see in a lot of the Harbor Freight stuff. And this is kind of going along the new line of what Harbor Freight's going for, that prosumer, you know, the pro-consumer market. All right, let's get it back up on the bench, and I'll meet you up there. Okay, so far I'm really impressed. I didn't mention, this was at the bottom of the box. This is the 110 to 240 converter. So the actual plug on the machine is the 240 plug, and then that gets plugged into this, which is a pigtail that gets you down to the 110 outlet. And obviously that's if you're going to be doing anything with 110 welding. So I saw a welding cable, ground cable, gas hose, and TIG gun. And from what I saw in the store, it looks like they pack the MIG gun in here, you know, saving on using a bigger box, which is okay with me. Yep, there it is. So once we get inside, we'll get a closer shot of that. All right, so looking here, I got the camera zoomed in a little bit, just so we can see a couple things on this. So they packaged the MIG gun in here pretty nicely, actually. Connections are covered so it doesn't scratch. Really nice. It is kind of jimmied in here just a bit, so I want to be careful I don't break anything. All right, so there we go. Initial reaction, yeah, that seems pretty solid. I mean, I've never actually welded, but I felt plenty of these guns. The high-end ones and the really cheap ones, and this one feels really nice. Button's a little softer than what you'd probably find on a Miller or something similar, but I mean, I'm not going to be welding up day after day. This is a hobby project welder that I'm going to be using on a lot of projects, but you know, it's not going to go through the paces like a commercial grade machine would go. So here we go. We've got the spool for the wire, and then this was one of the big selling features for me. These drive rollers on the cheap machines are made of plastic or, you know, similar materials, and this one's all cast, which I really like, because obviously that's going to last a lot longer. I don't know why. I mean, I know why they make them out of cheap plastic, because it's cheaper, but this is really solid. Looks to be going to last a long time. So we have that. We've got instructions how to set up the feed roller, and we've got all the settings. So this does stick, TIG, and MIG, and it shows all this and what wires you can use, what shielding gas, the polarity, how to set up the DINs in the front, and everything else. So we'll go over that in a little bit. The back of the machine, we see on-off switch, obviously, and then we've got the gas input. So I'm going to be doing MIG welding, and I'm going to be doing it with my gas tank. We'll show that in just a second. I have a cart over my right shoulder here. So we're going to have the regulator on the tank with the gas input, and then here's the switch I was talking about earlier. Here's your plug, and then your switch for 240 and 120. So some machines, I guess, figure out what you're using. This machine does not. So I'm not sure what would happen if you were to plug it in and it wasn't set right, but just make sure. If you're going to use 120, switch it over. If you're going to go to 240, make sure it's going to be set over. So I'm going to set it to 240 so I don't mess that up, because that's what we're going to do. The plug's just over here. And then here's the front of the machine. So we have our DIN style connectors. Now, the one thing I didn't like, this doesn't have the normal style DIN connectors. And I'll be honest, I don't know enough about welding machines for the finer points if this DIN, let's say if you had a Miller gun and you had the right size DIN, if you could use it on this machine. I'm not 100% sure about that, but these are just going to be fine. I've got the 3 guns, the stick, the TIG, and the MIG, so I'm all right with this. And these go in positive or negative depending, and then you got your MIG gun. All the buttons feel really solid, just really really good quality, I think. And then you've got your button for MIG, TIG, and stick. And then you got something that it was new to me, obviously, new to welding, the 2T or the 4T. 2T being if you hold down the trigger, the wire feed comes out, and you're welding. You let go of the trigger, it stops. The 4T, if you hit the trigger and let go, it continues to run on the weld. So you can just, if you're making long passes, it might be easier not to hold the button down. And then at the end, to stop it, you hit the trigger again and it stops it. So that's the difference between 2 and 4T. So we've got that. So I'm going to set the machine aside real quick, and then we're going to just open up the rest of this. So we saw the MIG gun. Alright, so here is the, well, they got them kind of tangled up, but there's the stick welder. Where are we at here? Well, packed really nicely, but kind of tangled. So I'll just fight through that. Okay. So here's the stick welder. Pretty good. When I say I haven't welded before, it's sort of a lie. I had a 110 buzz box that my friend allowed me to borrow. It was his dad's. It was an old Sears. It was a stick welder. I'll tell you what, and the reason I say I've never welded before is because that event led me to kind of postponing welding. Didn't know what I was doing. It was a 110 box, didn't have much power. Just all around, it was a harder process, I think, to learn than what I'm going to try to learn on, which is MIG. Some guys swear by learning stick first, but I don't have a lot of thick material I'm working with, and that's what I wanted to have this gun around in case I was doing some kind of like farmish type welding, you know, just big steel plate or something. I've seen some videos that, I mean, you can weld some crazy stuff with this. So seems pretty solid. Spring clamps pretty good. The wire is really nice, actually. I'm really impressed with that. I didn't see this in the store, so that's nice. One of the big complaints with these, and I shouldn't say cheaper welders, you know, I got this welder for $650 on coupon, Harbor Freight. Please don't buy anything from Harbor Freight without the coupon. The markups are just, I mean, there's some still good deals, but you'd rather get as best a deal as you can, right? So a lot of the complaints with these welders is the ground clamps and the wires are kind of chintzy on these cheap welders. And for what this machine is, it's a cheap welder. Now $650 is not cheap by any measure. It took a lot to pull the trigger on it. But a lot of times the clamps are chintzy, and this one, I mean, this has some really good power. The cheaper welders, you know, the consumer grade ones, the cheap consumer grade ones at Harbor Freight, man, these springs are just crap. This one actually seems like it's going to last, and it's got a really nice tension to it, so that should be good. Inside that box was the air hose. I don't know, I guess it's okay. Could have been better. Fittings seem really nice though. Just a little braided line. I don't know if that's going to show up in the video or not. Yeah, probably not. But just two fittings for your regulator. And then here is the TIG gun. So I'm actually most excited about this. I've got some projects coming up that it's going to be on this channel for a brewery setup that I've brewed beer. I have for many years, but kind of had a rudimentary setup. So I want to really make a nice brewery out of stainless, and this will allow me to TIG weld, obviously, stainless. So really nice. Yeah, I think that's going to work really nice. The only thing I don't like about this TIG gun, most of you already know, it's not AC, so you can't TIG welded aluminum, which isn't a big deal for me. I don't really have a need or want to TIG aluminum until I get to the aircraft build that I spoke of in my first video with the what this hangar garage is all about. When I get to that point, it's going to be many years, so I'll probably get an AC TIG machine, but this does DC. And the other complaint, not a complaint, but I guess a hit on it, it doesn't have high frequency start. So you're going to be using scratch start. And with scratch start, you know, you're introducing your tungsten into whatever metal you're welding. So my stainless brewery project, I'm going to have to scratch on that. So it kind of contaminates the tungsten and it can mess it up. So that's my only complaint, but man, really nice cover on it, really nice feel. I like it. I'm really impressed. So now we'll stop here and let's start setting this thing up. Let me show you right across here. I've got my welding cart all ready to go, and here it is. I've got my MIG bottle, 7525 CO2 and argon, and then the Harbor Freight rolling cart. So that rolling cart is a really nice addition. I'll just show you that real quick as we're doing the welding. It's, you know, it's got spaces for consumables and clamps and gloves and all kinds of stuff. So let's get this thing set up. Okay, so here's where we lost the audio. Not quite sure what happened. I was in the garage with the wireless headset, and it looked like the battery might have died. But so in the picture here, I'm showing you that there's a adapter to hold a 5-pound spool, and we're just taking that off because what's included in the kit is a 2-pound spool. So there's 2 washers, which I'm going to try to show you right here, and they have a little tang on them. With the bolt that has the head that the spool attaches to, there's a little guide that the tang goes down so that the washer can't spin. So right there I'm just describing that you need to have the wire come from the left down and around. You'll see me feed that in a second, but you put your 2 washers on and there's a little spring and that tensions up the reel, and we have to make sure there's enough tension so that the reel doesn't let loose when we take the little bend that secures it when it's shipped. So right here I'm just looking at the instructions to make sure that I've got the settings correct for the feed. Okay, here we're looking at the manual. It's showing how to set up the MIG setup for gas shielding, and it gives a really nice picture that allows you to pretty much do this without really knowing what you're doing, as did I. So you take the DIN connector, you're going to put it in the positive, which leaves the negative open to the ground clamp. So you take that DIN, you just twist it in there. Now the MIG gun, this was a little more difficult. I didn't get a good shot of it. I apologize for that, but at the end, this goes in right there, but I couldn't figure out its stopping, so there was a little set screw, and we're fast forward just a little bit so we can keep the time down on this video, but you need to unscrew that, and I didn't unscrew it enough, and you can see me push it a couple times. There it seats down. Once you get it seated, then you want to screw it tight so that the gun can't come out, or the connector can't come out, excuse me. And then this pin really wasn't as easy as I was hoping either. There's numbered pins on the actual machine side, and then there's supposed to be a little key slot that it goes in, and for the life of me it wouldn't work for me. So I looked inside there and I saw that the pins are numbered on the actual unit, and once I got it in there it was fine, but you got to be careful that you don't mess up those pins, because I'm sure that would be a bad thing. Okay, here we have the regulator on the bench, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to wrap the ends of the gas hose with some Teflon tape. The shielding gas is very expensive to get. You know, the tanks are a few $100s, and to fill them is about 50 bucks a tank, depending on the size of your tank. So, want to make sure there's no leaks. So right here, we're fitting one end of the gas hose into the regulator, and then right here we're tightening them. Now, I didn't have my crescent wrenches with me. I suggest using those instead of the wrenches I'm using. Okay, so here we are. We're fitting the Teflon tape around the fitting that goes into the tank. Now, one thing with the tank, you need to open it. The instructions clearly state you need to put your face away from it, open the tank away from you slowly, purge some air out of there, make sure that the fitting is clean inside there before you actually connect it so there's no debris that goes down the line. So here we are, we're all set. Alright, so we've got the welder up in the cart now, and I'll try to stay out of the way and do this. Basically, we hooked up the regulator as you saw, and then the gas connection has to get hooked into the welder itself. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and it's pretty much just put some Teflon tape on there and make sure you tighten it down. Don't get too crazy though. It's just like with any other fitting, you don't want to really wrench too hard. You don't want to break it. Just snug enough so it doesn't leak. I'm going to keep this gas cap. It comes on the back of the welder. In case you ever, if I take it up north, I'm not going to be doing MIG welding. I'll end up doing flux core. So it's a good idea, especially up north with all the sand and everything else. All right, so here's the drive roller. As you can see, the spool wire's on there. When it first comes assembled, it sits like this, and you just have to unscrew this until you can get enough tension and just push that down, lift that back up. Now, that being said, you have to check to make sure that the roller is the right roller for the size wire that you have. So you unscrew this knob right here, and then that comes off, and then the roller comes off. The number that you're looking at is the number that should be on the spool. So we're working with 0.30 wire, and it's solid core, so you're using the knurled, the V-notch, not the knurled. The knurled is for flux core. So what we have here, the wire is on the spool, so I'm going to try to stay out of the way, but it might be a little difficult. You need to put tension on this, because if you don't put tension on this, as you unscrew it, the wire is going to go all over the place. So as you're pulling it down, you want to have some tension on the wire. And what you're going to do is you're going to guide it in here. About that length. So it's right over the roller, it's inside the notch, and what we're going to do is we're going to push this down and latch that. So now this has a tensioner. So there's different tensions for different wire, and currently our wire is 0.30 solid core, so it's set to 3 to 5. Sorry, I had to look that up. So there's some markings, and you just screw that down, and there is 3. So we'll split the difference, and we'll go to 4 and see how that works. All right, so now we have the MIG gun. What we want to do is we need to get that wire down the way. So I'm going to just turn the cart a little bit. That's going to be out of the way here. We want this liner in here as straight as possible to make the path for the wire the least resistance we can. So we'll straighten that out. What we'll do is we'll grab the plug, because at this point we need to plug the machine in, and we want to make sure it's an appropriate rated plug. Go ahead and plug that in. And making sure it's on the 240, and then we're going to turn the machine on. So right now you hear it spool up. So what we ended up doing is we took the contact tip off. So that tip right there, and then the contact tip, we took those both off. So now the gun just has copper ends, so the wire will pass through easily. So hold this as straight as possible, and we pull the gun. Okay, I left this in to show everyone that you can definitely mess this up. So when I was pulling the trigger on the gun, it wasn't letting any wire come through. It wasn't even making any noise. I was trying to adjust the feed roller speed right here, still not working. And then finally I realized that during the setup, when I was showing you guys the 3 buttons with the MIG, the TIG, and the stick button up on the front, I had left it in TIG. So I had to put it to MIG. It still didn't work. So then I realized that I hadn't put enough of the wire down the sleeve, and that was the problem. So here we go. Setup, really easy. Actually really impressed with the setup. I really like how simple everything was, and I haven't set up another welder, so I can't really compare, but really quite simple. Everything in the box was pretty well packaged up. Everything seems like it's pretty high quality, so from a review standpoint of that, I'm gonna give it a really great rating. Now can it make a new welder weld good stuff? So I went over to the scrapyard and I got this big sheet of metal. It's kind of far in the frame. Just the first time welding in a video, I don't want to get my very expensive camera close to the piece, but it's probably, I don't know, a little over a 1/4 inch piece of metal. So I'm gonna go ahead and ground the table. I'm gonna put that back here, and there's good ground right there. And what I'm gonna do is I'll show you these 2 pieces. This is a piece of bed frame rail. I got a bunch of steel from the yard, and then I put a micrometer on it, and it's actually pretty thick. So I don't want to weld thick stuff just quite yet. I want to learn on some thinner stuff. So this is bed frame material. It's just channel iron, L bracket type material. So I'm just going to do a butt weld like that. So opposing, and we'll just see what we can do. I got a magnet behind it, so it's holding it. And like I said, sorry the video is so far away, but I want to actually make sure that I don't damage my camera before I start taking pictures of this. So obviously got gloves. I have a respirator. It's made by Miller. I work in an industry that health is a big thing. I have to get yearly physicals. So I want to be safe and at least not breathe the most toxic stuff I can. So I'm going to be wearing that. Other than that, I've got a auto darkening helmet and my gloves. So pretty much I think we're all set here, and start making some spark. All right, so first weld, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and tack it first. Well, put a little too much wire out there, so I'm just going to snip that really quick. Okay, perfect. I lost the audio again. If some of you saw, the pack on my hip is the wireless audio, and it was flashing, which means the battery was just about to die. So right here, just starting tacks, put 2 in there. Not bad, actually. I was really impressed with the tacks. I don't really have a great technique, let's be honest. That was my first tack and my second tack, so I was globbing up the tip a little bit, which I don't know is normal. If you leave comments in the comment section, that would be real helpful. But feeling pretty good about it, and I realize the audio's out. Alright, I don't know why my microphone went off. It was probably just because it was in there. So let's take a look here. So see the first tack, got good penetration. Second tack, it's kind of hard to see. Really not that great. Look in the back, it's tacked on there. I mean, it's pretty solid, but what I want to do now is I want to try to run some actual beads. So I'm going to do it like that. So again, the audio went out. Gonna have to look into it. It's definitely a battery issue. Funny, I do buy quite a bit from Harbor Freight, things that I review and get good reviews on. I definitely try to get as many tools as I can for the money. You know, I spend it where I need to, but if I can get a good deal on a tool, I definitely will. The batteries in this microphone pack are from Harbor Freight. I would say probably not that great of a deal. We're talking 20-30 minute video and the battery's already dead in that. So this has proved a little more difficult than I was hoping. A lot of it I have to think is due to the metal not being cleaned. I just cleaned up the front side of it. And my technique, I don't really have a good technique. You'll see the weld in a second. I'll bring it over to the camera, but it's less than lackluster. Now after this I went and I did a bunch of welds on just a piece of steel as a ticket, and I ran it, and seemed to come out much better. And then I joined a few other pieces together, but this one, not so great. Alright, initial review. It's a heck of a little machine. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it, and I would suggest if you're in the market for a welder, this can't be beat for the price, I don't think. That is certainly strong. I would say that's probably an extremely ugly weld, both of these. But the actual weld quality of the machine doing its work, really good. I had my mask set up a little too dark, and I couldn't see the puddle. And I'm not trained. I haven't done this before, so thanks for joining me. If you like this, I know it was a little long-winded, this first one. The next videos won't be that long. But if you like this, please subscribe, please like. Check out the Titanium Unlimited 200 at Harbor Freight. And thanks for joining. Welcome to the hangar.